Hi, folks. Welcome back, and we are joined right now, as promised, by our friend, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, Fox News, strategic analyst, and author of the great book, Hell or Richmond. We welcome in the one and only Ralph Peters. Hello, Ralph.
Hey, glad to be speaking to the one and only Steve.
Yeah, by coincidence, that is true. Always great to talk to you, my friend. All right, please explain to the folks and to me as well, what exactly the conflict is in Ukraine.
The conflict in Ukraine is over the future of Europe and the future of Russia. The man pulling all the strings, who started this, who's responsible, is Vladimir Putin. Any notion, and his administration, the Obama administration, has expressed the notion that Russia could help solve this, well, maybe with tanks and paratroopers, but Vladimir Putin wants to yank Ukraine back into the Russian fold, where he believes it belongs, to continue his Russian empire building, increase Russia's population by 45 million, regain all that Black Sea frontage, regain a common border with Europe, with Poland and Romania, and so forth. It's Putin's ambitions. That's what this is all about. Within Ukraine, there are two sides. Those in the eastern third of the country, who are ethnic Russians by and large, speak Russian. Stalin redrew the borders of Ukraine to mix it up so it wouldn't be purely Ukrainians, because he had trouble with Ukrainians. The western two-thirds speak Ukrainian. They feel they are part of Europe. Contrary to nonsense you'll hear in the media, they have not been controlled by Russia for hundreds of years. They were controlled largely by the Poles and then the Habsburgs. The Bolsheviks, the communists, grabbed them after the October Revolution, after World War I, and promptly starved millions, on purpose, starved millions of Ukrainians to death. Ukrainians have not forgotten. They do not want to be part of Russia. They want to be part of Europe. They want to be free. That is what the struggle is about. Now, with all the violence you're seeing in the streets, an incredible bravery on the part of the Ukrainian freedom fighters standing up to the government, and the government's interior ministry troops. That's who you're seeing fighting them. Those are the real jackbooted stormtroopers. That's not the Ukrainian military, at least not yet. So, Steve, there are two questions whose answers will determine the outcome, the fate of Ukraine. First, what will the Ukrainian military do? Now, President Yanukovych, who's Putin's puppet, has already fired 2 days ago Colonel General, that's one of the ranks they have, Colonel General Zamana, who is their chief of defense staff, their senior military man. He fired Zamana because Zamana would not order the troops, the Ukrainian army, to open fire on Ukrainian people. He wouldn't order them to take action against Ukrainian people. He's replaced them with a hardline admiral who nobody quite likes. But the question is, first question, what will the Ukrainian military do? If ordered, will it attack the protesters? If it does, it's game over, and Russia owns Ukraine indirectly and later directly. If the Ukrainian military stands with the people, then freedom has a chance, and it leads us to question two, the final question, which is, what would Putin then do? Would Putin send in tanks and paratroopers in order to supposedly respect the will of Ukrainian people and prop up the Yanukovych regime? Do not rule that out. And, this is looking awfully much like Berlin, like East Berlin in 1953, Budapest in 56, Prague in 68, Warsaw in 81. Putin plays for keeps, and he is at heart. Even though he doesn't believe in communism per se, he believes in the Russian Empire, and he is, in heart, an imperialist in the Soviet mode.
Wow. All right. So, Ralph, under that scenario, if Putin were to take action, up the ante, so to speak, in that regard, which of course would invoke those horrific analogies that you just alluded to, what would and what should the United States and the West do?
Well, the Obama administration would promptly lodge a protest. and they might even put sanctions on a dozen people. As you heard, our president said in Mexico, there will be consequences.
Yeah, we played that bite. Yeah,
just as there, we're going to be consequences in Syria. Mm-hmm. and Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and Iran, and blah blah.
Well, doesn't
blah,
this
blah.
embolden Putin?
Of course it does. I mean, Putin he's an old KGB case officer. He's good at sizing people up. And he sized up Bush, and he's really sized up Obama. And he sized Obama up as a typical intellectual, someone who talks a good fight, but is an absolute coward in the clinch. And frankly, it's a harsh word, but our president is a coward. Now, that doesn't mean I want us to go to war over Ukraine, but my God, he doesn't even stand up for his own principles. I mean, you want him to make a decision on Ukraine, on Syria, on Afghanistan? He can't even make a decision on the Keystone XL pipeline. This is a man, we have elected a president twice who is unable to make decisions. Whether they're right or wrong, whether they're left or right, he can't make decisions, and he cannot accept responsibility. Putin can make decisions, and Putin's glad to take responsibility for his actions. I mean, I don't like Putin at all, but he is a terrific leader for Russia in the sense that he gets things done for Russia. Our president, my God, I mean, he's absent without leave all the time. And as some others have observed, his recent visit to Mexico, he spent more time recently playing golf in California than he did in Mexico. And like it or not, Mexico is actually our number one geostrategic partner, issue, concern, all of the above.
Yeah, we're talking to Ralph Peters, Lieutenant Colonel, of course. Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst and author of Hell or Richmond, a great novel, a historical novel on the Civil War. You got to read this. And Ralph, what is this? I mean, what are the folks in Poland thinking today?
The folks in Poland are standing behind the Ukrainian freedom demonstrators. They're reaching out to their contacts. They have close contacts with the Ukrainian military, begging them not to turn on their own people. And a friend of mine who worked in Ukraine, an American who worked with the Ukrainian military pretty closely, he sees the Ukrainian military as nationalistic. They are there to defend the Ukraine, not shoot their own people. But, when orders come down from above in a situation like that, every commander at every level has to follow his own conscience, and it could be split. I mean, there are a lot of ways this could go. This could turn into a civil war. The logical solution, which won't happen, at least not without a lot of bloodshed, would be to split Ukraine up into the western two-thirds. It's the real Ukraine, Ukrainian-speaking, civilized, and let the eastern third, barbaric Russian speakers, go back to Russia. I mean, I've been there, throughout the area. And eastern Ukraine is an industrial, post-Stalinist wasteland. Let Russia have it. What matters is the Ukrainian heartlands on the Don and the Dnieper, and reaching over toward Poland and Romania. But we have no mechanism in the world for that. Common sense, same thing. We should have broken up Iraq. But we can't think like that. No, it's not our job to break up Ukraine. I'm just saying that would make the most sense. But unfortunately, the Poles are, of course, very concerned because Russia would move right up to their border if it gobbles Ukraine up again.
Right.
And this is, I keep telling people, as awful as the bloodshed in Syria is, this is more important. Ukraine is more important than the United States. Because if Putin is allowed to gobble up Ukraine again, make it part of the Russian Empire, unofficially at first, officially later, he gains all that frontage in the Black Sea, he gains 45 million more people, he gains common borders with Europe, gains incredibly rich and important agricultural territory, and above all, he's encouraged to pursue his ambitions even further.
Ralph, fascinating set of scenarios that you presented, and great analysis of why this is so important. And I thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you and listening to you, sir.
Great speaking with you, Steve.
Thank you. Ralph Peters, ladies and gentlemen. Watch him on the Fox News channel, where he's strategic analyst for that fine channel. And Hell or Richmond is his latest best-selling novel. He is a wonderful, very talented novelist, and Hell or Richmond is probably the peak of his collection so far. All right, this is very serious stuff, very, very serious, and the way it was presented by Ralph, the different scenarios, the way it could go, depending on what the military in Ukraine does, depending on what Putin would decide to do if the military stands down and doesn't follow possible orders given by the puppet president in Ukraine. It's going to be it has a potential for disaster. Big-time disaster. And This is Putin's chance to show strength and to show he's not intimidated and he doesn't care what the world thinks and he's not afraid. There'll be consequences, but not military consequences, certainly. All right, folks, we're going to come back with Major General Paul Vallely on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.